killing brush. I've got him at gunpoint. Check the missiles and all the full evacuation on your side.
They're pulling them out.
10-1-1. Advisory for campus.
God.
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
I'm Chuck.
And it's time, first of all, for a little update. How are you feeling, dude? You're jacked up. You were laid out for locker room, like laying on your back, and we had some listeners that went on YouTube and watched the episode, so they knew what that looked like. But just for the listeners, I know.
So I injured my back.
Apart.
Yeah, I injured my back a while ago on the job, and just progressively started getting worse. Then my doctor died, so I didn't have a doctor for a while, and just now got one because I ended up having a really bad back spasm, and I couldn't walk. And everything is all my injuries that are really bad are all on my left side. So basically, my left side was just completely fucked that day, and my pregnant wife had to carry me to and from the bathroom because I couldn't use my left leg. Because it just stopped, I don't know, it just stopped working. It was crazy.
We had that
almost went to the emergency room. I was able to not go to the emergency room, and then schedule an appointment with my doctor, go to the doctor, loads of steroid shots into your butt and your shoulder, and then fucking bunch of pills and pain meds and
this
muscle
is separate
relaxers
from your knee.
This is separate from the knee.
Yeah, so crazy.
And so I've been dealing with that, and it's been getting better, but the back is still like really jacked. But the overall like searing pain of it all and like the muscles is kind of like it's starting to come down because of all the drugs and steroids they have me on.
Right.
So I got to take it easy a little bit on my back. But yeah, it was crazy because I was always told, back in the day when, years ago when I hurt my back, the doc is like, you need to make sure you have a surgeon on standby because there's going to come a point in time when you have a full leg drop. And when I had my surgeon, great world-renowned surgeon for the back, and that's what I was going to him, but he was old. And I was like, well, he's good. He's old.
Right.
He knows what he's doing. He's been doing this for a while. And then I had him on standby, and he knew we needed to do surgery on my back, but because of my age at the time, he couldn't do it.
Yeah, they don't want to do
like,
it.
You need to be like mid-30s, 40s, mid-40s.
That's what they told me. They said, we're not doing surgery on you. You're too young to, like, you'll probably need it eventually, but for right now, the longer you can wait to have back surgery, the better you are.
And I agree, but it would be nice to have had a doctor when they called me and said, hey, we can no longer see anymore. Your doctor died. Because I was like, oh, great, I have a doctor on standby. No, he's dead. And then I was like, I don't know who else to go to that's good. And I don't want to just go to any Joe Schmo. Like, this is your back you're talking about. You need a good neurosurgeon.
Right. Every back has an expiration date. That's just
And then when that back went this last few days, I was like, fuck, I can't use my leg. I'm in leg drop. Like I can't use it. Like, and then I'll be like, oh my God, I can use it a little bit. Oh no, I can't use it anymore. And then it doesn't make my knee any better because my knee is all fucked up. And then so I'm like, dude, this whole thing, I spent, I think, a solid day in bed and just not be able to move.
Right.
Oh, this is horrible. But yeah, that's how I'm doing.
So there's the update. But on a lighter note, you guys will know I love these episodes when we have returning guests, but this one especially because my buddy Adam is back. What's up, dude?
Hey, Tom. Glad to be back.
What are you doing? I'm always glad to have you back. First of all, because we work together, and you and maybe two or three other people who who I'm talking about. We're having a little three team member squad reunion this summer, hopefully. But
I hope so, man. I hope nothing gets in the way of that.
Yeah. You mean like World War III?
Dude, let's not get started on that conversation.
I know, right?
Putin's revenge.
But Adam's back, and it's taken a while to get to a point where Adam was able to share this story, but for a plethora of reasons. But Adam's been on before. You guys will remember. And today we thought we'd have him back and talk about another critical incident you were involved in. And when I worked with you, you weren't a total shit magnet, but we got in our fair share of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, working in the small town that we did, I felt like there was always a dark cloud over our heads, but that's just Maybe that's just me. I think it's just because we like to work. So
Well, that's part of it. I think we went looking for it where a lot of guys didn't, and we were willing to do police work. We were willing to get out there and dig for stuff and
yeah, we
get
had to
into the
turn
shit.
over rocks to find stuff
Oh my
most
God.
of the time,
Right.
and that was definitely not the case in the next agency. But
Yeah. But I did truly work with an actual shit magnet after you left. And so that was like, okay. So this is Adam and I just went looking for trouble and found it. This guy actually is a shit magnet.
Well, I wouldn't say you went looking for trouble. You were proactive instead of reactive.
Well, right.
we were
that's looking for
proactive. We're just
trouble,
putting
man.
a nice name on it.
we were out hooking and booking, man. We were like summer graveyard weekends, man. Like it was like, oh, what are you going to put in for? It's summer. I'm putting in for weekend graves. Like, let's go thump tweakers on a nice 82-degree balmy evening in Central California.
Yeah, that's right.
It was good times.
Yeah, 20 years ago, that sounds fun. Now,
Yeah, 20
I'm
years
in bed
ago.
by like 8:15.
Yeah, right. All the things like you don't get to go hang out with your friends this weekend. You have to go to bed early. No drinking. You're like, that was punishment when I was 21, and now it's awesome.
Yeah, all those things have consequences.
Yeah. So how have you been, man? What's going on?
Good, man. I'm just real estate. I'm so busy, man. You'd think with all the interest rates, the inflation, which is crazy. What's going on with Russia and Ukraine. We kind of wonder what that's going to do, but it's really not affecting the housing market. I mean, dude, there are so many freaking buyers out there. It's crazy. The inventory's historically low, but it's fun.
Seller's
It's
market.
busy. So there's a lot of buyers out there.
Yeah, it's where I'm at. It's you and I are only 6 hours apart, and it's very similar because it's even smaller up here. Like you're in an area where there's a lot more people, there's a lot more square mileage, there's a lot more inventory. Up here you've got my city's got 45,000, and the next city over's got like 35,000, and then the closest big city would be Spokane, Washington, and nobody wants to live in Washington. It's like
Not that I know of.
California's retarded cousin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we thought we'd have you back on to talk about your critical incident, or another one of your critical incidents, and the floor is yours, brother. Why don't you kind of remind everybody how you ended up? You and I worked together, and then went on to a different agency, and that.
So, yeah, did we talk about our where we worked, or do we not mention it?
I don't care.
Yeah,
I think we said it.
Let's see. I started in September of 2002 at Atascadero, and people are like, "Oh, Atascadero State Hospital." I'm like, "No.
No.
They actually have a small PD there, and that's where I got my feet wet."
Mhm.
And what, you started in a few months after me, December?
Yeah, I started January 7th.
Okay, so yeah, and just, man, real fun getting to just be a police officer as what was I, 23, 22?
Yeah,
I think we talked about it before. The first time I was by myself, and I was driving the police car, and then I was slowly driving down El Camino Real, which is the main street in Atascadero. And I remember looking in the shop windows and seeing myself in the police car and thinking, oh my gosh, man, that's so cool.
Yeah. And I said this before, your last night of FTO, I came in for my first day of day shift, your last night of FTO. So you were getting off graveyard shift. Franco was shaking your hand and signing off. And here I come walking in the door, my first day of day shift. And everybody's like, that could be you in a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks getting signed off?
It was 16
I think it was 16
actually.
weeks.
Yeah.
It
It's
was
a minimum of
weeks.
16 weeks. Yeah.
Right? I know. And I hear about these big agencies that go 6 months, right?
No. So it's a total of some of these big agencies, 18 months. You got 6 months of academy.
In the car
6
with
months-
somebody?
No,
Well,
no,
that's
no,
including
18
the
months-
academy.
Right.
Oh,
So
okay.
6 months of academy, 6 months of training, and then 6 months of at will status. We can fire you if you fart wrong.
Yeah. So probation.
Yeah, got it.
We
So
had that too, but ours was like it was graduate from the academy, then a minimum state mandated 16 weeks. So what is that? 4 months. It was a minimum requirement that you had to do 4 months in a car with a training officer. So Adam and I were out like 16 weeks and 1 day. Like they, you know, I remember Franco told me the same thing that he said he told you, one of our greatest FTOs ever. He said, you know, I'm going to evaluate you and see how you do. And then by 2 shifts into working with him, he's like, all right, cool. You're good. I'm going to sign you off in 2 weeks. Let's just go crush crime and suppress evil and have fun like, real cops do. And I was like, oh shit. All right, cool. So then for us, it was once you hit the street, it was 18 months after you hit the street that you passed probation. The academy
probationary period. Yeah. So had to at least keep our nose clean for that long. But
who was it that walked into the sergeant's office the night he told me the story. I can't remember who told the story, but the night he passed probation, he got off probation because it had been 18 months as of midnight. It was his 18-month anniversary. And so he walked into the watch commander's office at like 12:02 and was like, hey, so it's after midnight. I passed probation, didn't I? And they're like, yeah, I guess you did. And he looks at both sergeants and goes, fuck you guys, and gives them both the middle finger and runs out of the watch commander's office.
That's ballsy.
Yeah. I think it was Terry. I don't
know.
Yeah.
I never heard that story. That's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, so the floor is yours, man. Talk about.
Let's see. I guess we could just jump right in. The funny thing is this critical incident, this shooting, took place 6 months prior to my other shooting, where I got shot.
Mm-hmm.
So, this shooting, dynamically was so different and emotionally was so different, because these are the things that I don't want to say wanted, but in reality, yeah, these are the things that I was in the gang unit. Mm-hmm. I was rolling with my partner. His name's Dirk. And these are the things we looked for. We didn't look to go get in shootings, but we looked to, just like you said, suppress the evil. And for us, in particular in this night, I think we were out patrolling, specifically looking for gangsters in a certain area because there was a murder the previous week. A southerner had shot a northerner. So we knew that there was going to be retaliation. So that full week, I want to say we worked like 7 days in a row. We were just
because when shit like that happens, you have to start stepping on people.
So we did. We worked day, night. We switched up our shifts so they didn't know, because of course the gangsters all knew what shift we worked normally. So we had kind of switched it up, and we had worked all week. So it was one of those long weeks and nothing had happened. We had kind of done good suppression and had conversations with, all our northern gangsters to see what was going on. And we were working, I can't remember what night it was. It's like a Friday or Saturday night, like around 11:30. And we were actually going to just do one more loop around the little area that we do, the little hotspot for our gangsters. Right.
Right.
And we just happened to see, we were driving, one direction, and then parallel to that, perpendicular, we see a car go across. So our headlights hit their car, and it's 5 deep, and they all do the little look where they look back, and it's, maybe if we look forward, they won't see us.
Right.
That kind of look. So we knew,
it's like when little kids hide by putting their hands over their face.
Correct. So we're like, okay, well, this car looks a little suspicious, because they weren't going fast. They weren't going 25 miles per hour through the residential. They were going like 10, 15. Right. They were trolling. They were looking for people walking. So we, of course, start to follow it. It speeds up a little bit, rolls a stop sign, just enough for the violation. We light them up, and it starts hitting through downtown. It speeds up a little bit, then it kind of slows down, pulls to the side, acts like it's going to stop, and then just boom, pedal to the metal.
I want to tag up on that real quick, because it deals with a show we just had about pretext stops. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you go back and listen to our episode with Ken about pretext stops, this is a classic example of what we're talking about. Adam and his partner saw a car full of gangbangers doing gangbanger stuff that had not yet risen to the level of crime. But the second they do anything that does rise to the level of, okay, you've committed a violation. It's a traffic violation. It's a stop sign. Now I get to pull you over. Them's the rules. That's a perfect example.
I think traffic stop, running a stop sign is a major mover. So I don't think that would go under the pretext. But if it was like a BO taillight or headlight or like a
for LA's or something like LA's. Because for us, it's anything anything is a pretext stop if you're stopping someone for a violation, but that's not the real reason for your stop.
Yeah, I think it's touch and go on that. You're trying to change state law and they can't. Yeah, like a lot of agencies can't, and they're writing policy and it's so fucking obscure that they're like, you can do this, but you can't do this, but you can do this, but you can't do this because. So I think that it's I think you might be okay on that, but it's going to be probably scrutinized like shit by the DA or the PA.
and it has changed quite a lot, and I won't get too much into it, but we got sued for this shooting, and I was in a deposition for 3 days regarding what we saw in that car that was different from the next car. And man, when you're trying to articulate that to 3 lawyers that are just hammering you on everything because it's a deposition, it's nerve-wracking, but as long as you know what we're just talking about, then you're fine. Regardless, it becomes stressful, especially when you know you've done the right thing. But
going to court and testifying against lawyers is always stressful, period, let alone when it's about you.
Yeah. The deposition to me is so different because I have my lawyer sitting next to me, but when they ask these off the wall questions that they would never get away with in court, your lawyer just I remember looking over and being like, are you gonna like, I guess there's no objection here, like so
look,
it's a little different.
Maybe.
Yeah. I object to being here.
How about don't answer that? He's not gonna answer that anyway.
Right.
Start talking to yourself like the lawyer. Don't answer that. Okay, I won't answer that. Okay.
Anyway,
you jacked him for the traffic stop or the stop sign?
We tried to stop him for the 22-450, and they start going through downtown. They're blowing lights, and they jump onto the freeway. I'm driving, my partner's calling the pursuit, and I wish I could have found the radio traffic, but maybe I can get it later at some point. It starts to hit speeds of 100 over 100 like right away. Wow. And luckily that wasn't it just happened to be a good time. There wasn't a ton of traffic on the freeway. It's a white Hyundai Sonata, I believe it was.
And they got to 100 in that with 5 bangers.
100 and they impressive. Got over 110 for sure because they were pulling away from us. Well, they had the funny thing is I love talking about this now. Because this was 2012, right? And my partner's calling it out and they black out, because that's the easiest way to lose a cop, right?
Right.
Get on the freeway, hit it, and black out. Well, anytime we'd ever said, hey, vehicle's blacked out, it was like, supervisor's like, cancel right away. So he blacked out, and I'm like, oh shit, he blacked out. And my partner was about to get on the radio and say, hey, they blacked out. I'm like, no, don't say that. Just let's keep going. So
I don't know if they blacked out. I can't see them.
I'm like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Let's just keep going. So they black out. They're getting up off the on ramp or off the off ramp and back on real quick. I mean, it's getting pretty crazy. They're passing a few vehicles, but it starts to go into the county. And there's this one exit outside of our city that if you're not from our area, and we later found out that these actual Northerners were not from our city. They were from a city that was about 30 minutes away in Delano. And if you know Delano, that's like a prison town. Pretty rough, actually. But they had come down here to do some dirt. But anyway, so they want to peel off on this this exit for whatever reason. Maybe they want to start hitting neighborhoods or whatever, so they can jump out of the car and do their running. But they didn't know that this exit, it's got the sharpest hairpin turn to get off. So they launch off this off ramp and go straight into this field. And it's October in Central California. It's still pretty warm out. I'm wearing short sleeves at night at 11:30. So they launch in this field and they flip over a couple times. And you can see this. And now we're rolling up. And by that time, and I guess I should back up a little bit. While we were in the pursuit, a canine actually took over first position and we were calling it out. So by the time that we get there, it's the canine unit and us. So there's three of us there. We roll up and we kind of triangulate where we think the car may have gone in the field, but it's a good.
Oh, you can't see it.
We can't see shit. It's just a cloud of dust, of dust. And then we kind of pull up and then we can kind of see headlights. I can see that the car is on its head. So it's on its roof. And we can kind of make out, we're getting out of the car, we're running towards the car, and we take maybe 5-6 steps. And I could hear the canine officer to my left. He's getting his dog out and he's sending them. And then all of a sudden we just hear pop, 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 pop. And it's so funny in my mind. I see flashes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
that's a false memory.
I don't know if that's a false memory. Dude, that's almost 10 years ago. But we immediately started to return fire. So I start to move to the right. Just right when I hear gunfire, I immediately go lateral because I don't want to be if they saw me, I definitely don't want to be in the position of disadvantage.
Be where you were.
I started moving yes. So I immediately moved and without even thinking, I started targeting a guy that I could see that he was turning towards me and that he had a gun in his hand. So I started firing at him and, what I thought was he disappeared around the side of a building. Well, later I discovered that he didn't disappear behind the building. When I started firing, one of my 13 rounds had struck him in the back of the head as he was running. It was probably like 30 feet away. Oh. And I had called out on the radio, shots fired. And that one had got away. So I thought initially the guy that I had shot had really escaped because I thought he had rounded the corner. But in my mind, he just disappeared. So, but he disappeared because I hit him in the back of the head and he dropped.
Yeah, he dropped like a sack of shit.
Yeah. Oof. So it kind of clears, but all the while I'm returning fire, I can hear my partners are also firing. I can hear on the radio after I said shots were fired, my other partner had said shots. Like we just didn't hear each other. We were totally zoned out. But he had fired on another subject getting out of the car, hit him, and I'm talking about my partner now. He had hit him several times. I don't remember how many times, but incapacitated him. He didn't die. And then our canine officer also returned fire and killed another guy. There ended up being, I think, 2 or 3 guns in the car. I can't remember that we had located.
Plus the ones they were shooting at you with, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So, well, let me think here for a second. Oh, okay. So it's
tough, man. It's all kinetic. It jumbles together. Like
for me, it does. And to be honest, I was thinking about it. I remember I knew I was going to do this podcast. And I'm like, man, I haven't thought about this in years. So I even called my buddy. I'm like, dude, let's talk through this for a minute. And he was telling me things. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And he goes, don't forget to tell him you got bit by a dog too. I go, oh yeah.
I didn't know that part.
So
canine bite you?
Yeah. So the canine, as it took off towards the car, shots are fired.
Yeah. You never told me you got bit by a dog in all these years, but it's one of those weird things. Like I don't know that we ever like sat down and, cause you were so far away and I was so far away. Like from each other. So we never actually sat down and had beers about it. We kind of touched base and made sure each other was okay. And then over the years, we've talked about it a little bit, but I don't know if we ever sat down and did a deep dive on this.
No, I don't know that we have. That's true.
Yeah.
And usually anytime anybody asks me about the shooting, it's always about when I got shot. So,
Right.
But I mean, this shooting to me, like I said, was just so different.
This was a gunfight.
Back at it, it was a total gunfight. It was awesome. I mean, I hate to say it, dude, but it was fucking awesome.
No, I mean, let's be honest. Like you got,
right?
Yeah.
It's awesome because you survived, and you're like, yeah, I can talk about it.
That's the key difference. Is that shooting was awesome. The next one, not so awesome.
Yeah,
right.
But
it's that wild west. It's that wild west. You go to pull over a gangster in a gangster area, and then they speed up and they slow down, and they speed up again. And how many times have we all had that as police officers where you're in an area and shit's about to get, you're like, all right, it's going. All right, now they're going to stop. And then it goes boom, 0 to 100 real quick. And the adrenaline's rushing. Like that's the fun stuff of, what we used to do in kids playing cops and robbers. But now this is grown up version and you're in real vehicles going really fast and got guns and stuff. So that's like the best part about being a police officer is that adrenaline rush and to get to suppressing get crime and evil.
100%. I'm an adrenaline junkie and I still am. It's just
get it different ways now. Well, yeah, so sure. You guys, Adam's known me forever and he knows I relate to things a lot through movies because it's a good way to give a shared experience to people. Everybody's seen the movie, they understand the scene, they kind of get the emotion behind it. So even if they didn't live it, they kind of vicariously lived it. So I always think when you talk about like, did we get to get into a shooting? Did we find the guys that were going to be violent? Did we find the assholes we were looking for? And I think of that for those of you who don't know what this is like, there is a scene in a movie called Braveheart. It's a fucking great movie. And the Scottish army is lined up on one side and the English army is lined up on the other side. And Mel Gibson is riding his horse towards the English. And one of his guys says, "Hey, where are you going?" And they've got all their war paint and swords and shit. And he goes, "I'm going to pick a fight." And then one of the Scottish guys looks at the other one and goes, "Well, looks like we didn't get dressed up for nothing." And it's that kind of like, we're here, let's do this. Like you guys are gangbangers, we're cops. You want to do gangbanger shit, we're going to do cop shit. It's fucking go time. You chose violence today, and we're ready for that.
Yeah. And that's true. That's truly the reality of it. When I say, yeah, it was awesome, the fact of the matter is we trained for that very moment for years, our whole career. And we've talked about situations. We've hypothesized about what we would do in certain situations. And
every morning at breakfast after graveyard shift,
when it came down to, is somebody going to step up? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're if you're gonna call us out, we're gonna make it happen. We'll definitely make it happen. And that was just that night. So
So
but anyway,
let's get back to the dog.
The dog. So, like I said, when we rolled up, we were all very quick to get out of our cars as we should be, right? Tactically. He sends the dog, but when they return fire, I started returning fire. But that dog, I actually could remember seeing it out of the corner of my eye. That land shark just literally, for some reason, it turned around 180 and went right towards me. Probably because he's the first thing that he saw that was making a lot of noise with the gun.
Right.
And I saw him coming. And I'm like, oh, here it comes. He was coming full force. So all I did was I just turned my body to the right, still had my gun out, and the dog just latched onto the back of my left leg and just started going to town. So I was like, by that time, the shooting had stopped for us. And I was yelling at the canine officer, "Hey, get the fucking dog off me." So he came over. He called out of it pretty quick, but not before, I had to get a few stitches and stuff. So, but yeah, that's the only injury that I got. Luckily, no one else was injured. So
it's friendly biting.
Yes, and the funny thing is, he saw my buddy saw the bite. He's like, "Oh, that's not even that bad." And it's true. It wasn't
people.
It wasn't that bad. You know,
what kind of
for me, I'd never
Shepherd or
been
Malinois or what?
No, I believe it was it's a shepherd. Is a black shepherd.
Okay, like Zepp.
Yeah, similar.
Okay,
similar. And then they started going to all Malinois after that. We had some Malinois, but I'm glad I wasn't a Malinois. I've seen some Malinois do some damage, dude.
Elliot. For those of you who remember, Elliot told a story about the worst dog bite he'd ever, and he was an LAPD canine handler. He had Malinois and bloodhounds and all manner of dog, and it was a Malinois that delivered the worst bite he'd ever seen in his career.
Probably Arco.
It was Arco. Arco was
psychotic.
He's just said Arco was a crazy asshole. Like that dog was just insane. Now we had a dog. And I don't know if you remember this story, Adam, but because it was after you left, but it was a female officer, wanted to be a canine handler, ended up getting a dog. And unfortunately, circumstances being what they were, maybe some procedures weren't adhered to the way they should. I don't know. I don't know the details and I don't want to get into it. But ultimately, what ended up unfortunately happening was her canine was walking around her kitchen with her, niece who was 4 or 5 years old, and the niece tried to pet the dog at the wrong time while the dog was eating, and the dog bit her face. Like the police canine bit this her 4-year-old niece's face. And this was off duty at home, and so under some circumstances that dog's done. Like if a dog bites an innocent, dog's over. But in this case, because it wasn't the dog's fault necessarily, they ended up taking the dog and donating it to another agency where they are willing to take dogs that they just lock in the car and let out when they need to eat people. And I've been around a lot of canine handlers, and that's I will say that's one thing that I never had interest in, because anytime I got in their cars, it stunk like shit. There was hair everywhere. I'm sorry, but I just I'm type A, but I'm not anal, but I just don't want to stink the whole shift. And I just I love dogs. And we knew one canine handler. As far as I know, the two of us knew one canine handler who didn't smell like dog and was not covered in hair all the time. And he was anal. He was literally like the Odd Couple. He was the neat one. He was anal retentive, OCD. Like this motherfucker used to go, and he had a take home canine car, and it had chrome hubcaps, and he would go and be in the back parking lot, and he would put chrome spray and polish the chrome on his police car's chrome hubcaps. Like that's how anal this guy was.
Yes.
So he was the only canine handler who, as far as I knew, didn't stink. And when I saw the effort that had to go in to keeping the dog clean, keeping the car, like he did half police work and half dog maintenance, just to keep it that way. And I decided no, I'd rather just get in my car and go hook and book for my 12-hour shift and then not worry about it.
What's good now is that I'll go for it.
I was just going to say, I have an immense amount of respect for canine handlers, because it really is. It's a full-time job. Like and I was going to say, like the dog walking around the house, I've heard of canine officers. Oh yeah, my dog's real friendly. He's like a family dog. And then I've heard other ones like, no, I kennel his ass. He's kenneled because when I get him out, he knows it's time to go to work.
Right.
Exactly.
He's either in the kennel or he's working. In the kennel or he's working.
Those working dogs have to be kept like that, because I've seen so many handlers ruin their dogs. And I've heard from senior handlers going, oh, this person just fucking ruined this dog. They're treating it like a family pet because it's a dog, when in fact it's a tool that we have to use, and we keep them kenneled for a reason. Not that we want to be mean. And a lot of senior canine handlers, I'll go out and take my dog out on a walk, every day that I'm off and run some drills with it, hide some dope or, hide a scent, or, not actual dope, but like scented, like toys with dope scent on it, and they'll run the dog and keep it, working. So that way, when they get ready to take it out, just like you said, Adam, it's time to go to fucking work. It's not, hey, let's take out and, and go play, because you don't really want your dog, to bite your kids, but you don't want that dog as a tool to be so fucking friendly when you take it out to where it doesn't want to do its job. It just wants to play. And
Absolutely.
I've had to see so many handlers that are getting walked all over by their dogs when they come out to a scene because they try to treat it as a pet when it's a tool. Down the road, you can, if you take that
after it retires,
sport.
man, make it a family dog. Go for it.
Yeah, if you
and
can.
I will say this. So
I've seen it happen.
People don't. Yeah, maybe people don't understand this, and I will explain the way it was explained to me because I thought the same thing. I'm like, man, that sucks. You take the dog home and you got to put it in its kennel and like it just lives in there the whole time. Like I wouldn't want to do that because I would want to develop a bond and relationship with the dog. I don't know that I have the willpower to do that. But the way it was explained to me is that most of the time when they tap into that the animal's willingness to go after a bad guy, chase a bad guy, bite a bad guy, do all the crazy shit that canines do, they don't tap into aggression. They tap into their sense of playtime. Like this is fun for them to do that kind of stuff. And the way they do that and maintain that is when they're at home. Home is boring. Home sucks because home is you're in the kennel. You can go to sleep. You can do some training or you can eat. When we go to work though, no, all bets are off. Like you can get out of the car, we can go do things. So that keeps the dogs excited about going to work because otherwise the dog goes to work and doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, that's correct.
Exactly.
That's what I've heard.
A lot of these new canine cars though, it's a kennel for the back seat. Like you cannot put a person back there. And it's a big steel box now to make it when the dog takes nervous stress shit. Like it's getting ready to go to a call or it's amped up because it saw someone run by and it's barking like crazy and it takes a shit in the back. They can pull them out, hose the dog down, hose their back out, and it'll smell for a little bit. But because it's like stainless steel, they're just able to straight up take a hose and just rinse it right out, which I thought was cool.
They just got a rubber, as far as I can remember, they just had a rubber mat as a seat, but it was flat.
Like WeatherTech,
Everything else was, just like you said.
Dude. Man.
We went on an alarm call and I remember this. Like it was, I don't even know if Adam, we were on this call, but we went on an alarm call. It was a big box store. And so we got the keys, we opened it up, burglar alarm. We're going to clear the store, but clearing a big box store against a burglar alarm either takes an entire team or a dog. So we got the dog and we brought the dog in and we figured we'll let the dog clear the store. And, he lets the dog go. Dog gets 10 feet into the store and drops a shit right in the middle of like the store.
I've seen that happen a lot. I don't remember that one, but I've seen it happen in Visalia too.
So I mean,
in the middle of a chase or something, and they just drop trout.
Dog's got to take a battle crap, dude. It happens.
Yeah,
it's that stress shits, man.
It's 100%. Yeah.
I've seen it where
I do it. I have stress shits.
I've seen a dog.
That's why you always take it. That's why we always wouldn't take a big shit right before a spot call out. It's like,
oh my God,
you don't want to be on that shit. Yeah.
I've heard it called a battle crap.
Yep.
I've heard
battle crap.
Yeah. And first you say it, then you do it, right? Oh shit. And then it all comes out. So it's funny though, for those of you who maybe don't understand this because you're not on the job or you've never been a vet or whatever. Think about when you go to the gym, right? When you go to the gym, a lot of people like they get their gym clothes on and they get ready to go. And either right before they leave the house or as soon as they get to the gym, they're like, oh my God, I got to take a dump. And when your body knows that it's preparing for physical exertion and stress and adrenaline, it knows instinctively it needs to be at its lightest, fastest, like dump everything. So we are ready to go. And so the urge hits and that's it. Nothing you can do.
It's biology, man.
Right.
The funny thing is, every time I got into like a hot call or it was like, you're getting ready to go. It was like the exact opposite for me. If I had to go to the bathroom real bad, all of a sudden it would just lock up and go away.
I've had that happen before too. It's been both ways.
Weird.
Where you're like, you've been waiting to go for like an hour, and then all of a sudden something happens. You're like, where did it go?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're like, I have time now. Let's go.
That thing back up inside. Man.
So there were 5 guys in the car. I just want to finish this out. There were 5 guys in this car.
So there were 5 people in the car, 4 guys and 1 girl.
Okay. And she probably had all the guns on her.
At one point, maybe, but from the interview later, she was interviewed, and another guy that hid. They hid in the car. They stayed in the car once they heard all the firing. They hunkered down.
Right.
Well, that guy interviewed and said that my guy was the driver. He had 2 guns underneath. He was sitting on 2 guns and said, "We're not fucking stopping, and we're not going to jail." So that was at the beginning of the pursuit. So
when they saw you and you saw them, he was already sitting on the 2 guns. They were looking to do some hood shit. And when you were able to light them up, the chase was on, because they were he was like, nope, either we're going to shoot it out and I'm going to die, or
they no doubt in my mind that they came to Visalia to do dirt. And that's typically not always how it works, because usually the people in your own town would like to retaliate, but that doesn't mean that, Northerners don't band together and do that. Or they could have coincidentally been in town just to do some dirt. Who knows? So,
yeah, I mean, that's, it could always be that.
It's neither here nor there.
Gangbanger's going to gangbang, right? Tweaker's going to tweak. Like,
yeah,
shithead's going to shithead. It just like, and the sad part to me, and I'll maybe you guys can speak to this a little more, but when I think about, and I had this conversation with my wife just the other night, because we were watching something where a guy had to recount a war story, and part of it was that in using force in shooting, he ended up killing the bad guy, but he also ended up killing the woman and the child. And the story was that the guy had taken his wife and his kid hostage, and it was war, and they got killed. And I thought to myself, the sad part is that a woman and a child is dead. It's not that the bad guy's dead. I don't care that the bad guy's dead. Like, that you just, you need to go see Jesus. I'm going to arrange a meeting. But the woman and the child, I don't necessarily know how you can, like, that's him doing that, right? Like in your case, this girl's in the car, right? If she had not shot at you guys, if she had not fired a shot, like she didn't, she was just hiding. But then through the subsequent gunfire, she had been struck and killed. Then if she didn't have a gun on her, and if she had not fired a shot at you guys, the media would be saying this young, innocent girl struck and killed unarmed by police. Well, you forgot the 3 other assholes in the car that were armed and doing hood shit, and what she was doing. And the sad part to me is that her life was so fucked that she was in that car doing hood shit to begin with.
Even though they would have, even though the murder rule stands, and they would have had to have charged them because there was nobody else that was basically unarmed. There was no charges. So
I mean, was there another crime? There was no other than the stop sign violation, the pursuit violations, and then subsequent, if they'd have given up, you'd have gotten them gun charges.
Yeah,
right. But they weren't driving, so you can't get them for the pursuit stuff.
I don't think they charge. I don't think they charge them with anything. I think initially that they filed, and then down the line they just let it go. So
yeah. It was like an honorary filing, like, we could fang you for this, and we're going to file just because it makes it look good, but then we're going to dismiss because nobody wants to deal with this anymore.
If that happened in 2022 or even last year or the last couple of years, I'd be fearful that this, the way the temperature of the country and how law enforcement is viewed, and how DA's offices are handling officer involved shootings, that we would have been filed on. Like,
yeah. Well, you told me your guy got hit in the back of the head, and I immediately thought, oh my God, the back of the head.
That means he was exactly.
That means he was not facing you.
He's running away.
And he might have been turning. He might
running away.
Right. Yeah. There's all these things, and the bottom line is, you guys just heard the story. That was a kinetic situation. Adam was taking rounds, and he was putting rounds back down range at a guy who had a gun. Period. End of story. You didn't know what he was doing. You just knew he was dangerous and trying to kill you. And you said you didn't even think you hit him.
I didn't. I thought he escaped. But and a lot of times, this is the thing. Normal people who watch media, and normal citizens, even friends of mine have said, I just don't understand how that happened. He got shot in the back 3 times. I'm like, yes, but you don't understand human reaction time. We're no different. Like, we might have a little bit better training and reaction time, but the reality is, if somebody fires at me 3 times standing in front of me, 15 feet away, and they turn and run, my reaction time is only going to get him while his back is turned.
Right. By the time you actually deliver rounds.
Right. But they say he's no longer a threat at that point. Well, no. I'm still going off. My reaction time and my perception is still him shooting at me. So by the time that my reaction happens, the consequences are there. So that's what people don't realize. It's not that we don't see a person running away from us.
No.
There was an incident that occurred that I can't really speak to right now, or because it's not my place to, but it involved a special task force involved with municipal police and FBI. And FBI agent got hit. It was a they were trailing a murder suspect, ended up getting into a firefight with said murder suspect, who pointed like damn near almost point blank at him, started firing after him a revolver. And without naming agencies and stuff like that, other than the FBI, because FBI is an integral role of this whole outcome.
Right.
One of the suspects was shot on the ground after he had fired and was put down. But it takes the brain, and this is what the FBI found out, and this is what saved all the officers, is that and then they were awarded like an FBI special medal or something, like Medal of Valor. It takes the brain 5 seconds from that last round being fired for your brain to fully recognize that the threat is no longer a threat anymore. Once the situation has stopped, it's 5 seconds, and they were able to, I guess, figure that out at like the FBI, whatever, and they were able to come out with that. And
do they still have the Police Science Institute around too?
I think so.
Have you ever heard of Police Science Institute?
Yeah. I think
they do a lot of study. They do a ton of studies like that with shootings, stabbings,
like the Toller principle, 30 feet for a knife.
Yeah, which of course we know is all bullshit. It's all
yeah.
And think about it: 5 seconds. If you just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, people are like, oh, that's a long time. You're like, dude, that goes by like in a second. Like, you have no idea how short 5 seconds is and how fast your brain's having to take in all this information being thrown at it in a high stress environment where everything is kind of closing down on you with tunnel vision. 5 seconds goes by in like a millisecond. Like it zooms by.
I have never heard that. I've never heard that in particular. I'm interested I want to know more about that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
So I can talk about it offline, but it was a big fucking thing. Like, it was huge, with a few agencies and saving officers and stuff like that. And I'll talk to you about it later. But
there was a recent video that Chuck and I watched, and maybe we'll do it. And maybe Adam wants to join us for these, but we're going to do our video debriefs of these body cams and these shooting footages and stuff like that. Right now we're a little slowed down because Chuck's been, laid up. But one of the ones we watched was a guy on a bridge, and they're trying to talk him, out of doing bad guy shit, and he moves real quick and they light him up. And it was right on camera, like on the freeway overpass in front of God and everybody. And one of the things that immediately struck me was he makes this really quick movement, and you hear multiple calibers going off, pop, 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 pop. And then there's maybe a second or a second and a half delay. And then you hear the AR pop, pop. And it's like, to other people who don't understand, they might not get that those last, like, they're, that guy fired 2 rounds late or whatever. Well, you don't know what he was seeing, right? Number one. Number two, his reaction time, that a second and a half is typically what they say. It takes you half a second to see what's happening, half a second to process what's happening, and then half a second to decide what you're going to do about it. And then you take action. So you're talking about a second and a half goes by before you even engage a lot of times. And this is where, if you've ever heard of the OODA loop, and everybody goes, oh, fuck the OODA loop up. The OODA loop is a real thing. OODA. We've talked about it on this show. If you can observe, orient, decide, and act faster than your opponent, you will win every time because action beats reaction. You watch anything. I refer, anybody listening to this, go watch the movie Open Range. The gunfight scene at the end of Open Range is spectacular because the first 10 seconds illustrates this point where one side of the group is talking and the other side of the group has a guy who just takes 2 steps forward and puts one right between his eyes. And everybody is then stunned that while they were talking, he shot him. It's like, well, we came here for a fucking gunfight, so I'm just going to shoot you. I'm not going to talk. And then they start opening up and they probably get another guy or two before the other guys have a chance to react because action beats reaction. When that guy turned and shot at you, he was able to get rounds off before you were. And when he turned around to run, he was able to turn his back before you could realize he had turned his back. Action will always beat reaction.
Absolutely. Getting the drop on someone is crucial.
Yeah. I told my kids, I said, if you know there's going to be a fight, you don't have to wait.
I tell my girls and even young boys, like, don't let people get up into your space. Right. Once they're in that space, it's okay for you to take action, whether that be push them, punch them, kick them, whatever you want, because if they're up in that space, they don't belong there.
There's no reason to be there.
If you get in trouble, I will come pick you up from school and take you to get ice cream. So
right.
It's whatever you want to do. So, but I just don't want them to be victims ever. I don't want them to be sheep. Right.
And there was it's a world renowned quote, and it's strike first, strike hard, no mercy, Cobra Kai.
Well, we've talked about that on the show too, though. There's legitimacy to the idea that if you use sufficient violence early and fast, the fight will be over and you will minimize the risk of injury to you and the suspect. Period. End of story.
We've talked about that so many times. I mean, that's how a lot of us, I'm sure all of us were brought up in policing, where you had supervisors and stuff. And like, it was going to get hairy because you're walking into a fucking riot situation. They're like, if you have to use your stick, you have to get into a fight, hit him hard, hit him fast, put him down quick. Because you don't want to be dancing with this person and get caught on video looking like you're dosey doing and just beating the shit out of this guy when that's not the case. Hit him hard, hit him fast, put him down quick.
Right.
Cuff him up.
Don't do anything after the bell.
And everybody else.
Right.
Exactly.
Nothing after the bell. Clean, fast, hard, done. And then it's, hey, look at that. You're in handcuffs. Let's stand you up, dust you off, and take you to fucking jail.
Yeah.
It was like a magic trick.
They're gone. Like,
exactly.
And
isn't that funny though? The public and our community, they want us to take care of these problems, right? They want us to.
They just want to watch it.
They just don't. They don't want to see it. They actually do want to see it now because it's on video so much. But then they want to criticize how we do it.
Yeah.
But as long as we're saying it, and I always tell them, like, think if that was happening to your mom or your elderly mother. Think if that was happening to your child. Like, that person had just assaulted your child, and now we're taking care of it. We're taking somebody into custody that doesn't want to be taken into custody, and I don't think people think about that very often. When you take somebody into custody that doesn't want to be taken into custody, it's never pretty. It's never pretty.
I will give you a very, very easy homework assignment, audience. For those of you who have never taken someone into custody, ever, right? And I don't mean taking an aggressive, combative, like you show up there on PCP, you got to sworn them. I mean, like, literally just as simple as turn around, put your hands behind your back, and I'll get the cuffs on you. And then they don't want to, right? If you've never done that, I want you to understand what it's like. So go find someone you know that has a cat that doesn't like you and try and pick it up and hold it. That's it. It's just that simple.
It's the same thing.
If you think that is hard, if you think it's hard to frickin' pick up a 6-pound cat that doesn't want to be held, now translate that to a 206-pound gangbanger. and he doesn't want to go to jail.
Or a 120-pound methed out female who fights like a fucking banshee, dude.
Mine was like a 90-pound female, and I said, thinking of the dog bite, the worst bite I ever got was this 90-pound, 16-year-old methed out female who just bit the back of my arm, and it was, oh my God, man! And I think to myself, handcuffs didn't go on her no matter what. It just, her wrists were way too thin. So
no, my wife, by the way, my wife's just talking about taking people into custody and fucked up shit happening. It's not a fight, but my wife still tells this story because when I was early on, she wanted to come for a ride along, and she went for a ride along, not with me, because I was like, okay, why don't you go for a ride along with somebody else and experience it without your husband there? So my wife went for a ride along with Adam. Do you remember this?
No.
Yeah,
I don't.
So my wife went for a ride along with you, and Brownie were working, and
she had fun.
She had a blast. She eventually did go for a ride along with me, but she went for a ride along with you and Brownie, and you hooked up some nasty ass tweaker chick, and you put her hands behind her back, grabbed her fingers, and cuffed her, and you totally reacted as soon as you grabbed her hands, because she had started tickling the palm of your hand with her middle finger, like she was trying to fucking get with you.
God, why do I always remember these? It's the little details that always make me remember. I do remember that. Yeah,
right, dude.
He was super drunk for that one too. He was super drunk and just was tickling the palm of my.
She was like, she thought you were hot, and she started tickling the palm of your hand, like, "Hey, what's up?" And she's in cuffs, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing later?" Dude, so my wife comes home, and she goes, "These women are fucked up," and I was like, "What do you mean?" And she tells me the story. I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's yeah,
it's the uniform."
Right.
It totally is. And then
with you, it's the fact that you're 6'3" and 225.
They pick out one person and they're like, I'm going to bond a connection with that one. I've even had it as a backing officer where the chick didn't want to talk to anybody else on a 5150, only wanted to talk to me.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, all right, you got to handle it. And I was like, okay. And crazy thing is, she started tickling me too with her fucking hands all cupped. And I was like, nope. And finally, I just had to pick her up and carry her downstairs. Like she was like 80, 90 pounds. But let me tell you what, she was like trying to hook up, like, saying, oh, you can do whatever you want. And I was like, no, you're going down here. Here's the ambulance. I'm out. Body cameras on. Like we're covered. And I was like, I'm out of here, guys. Can't do it. But it's funny. But I want to tag up on something real quick that Tom had mentioned right when we started Adam's story on pretext stops. By definition, Tom is correct. That is by definition a pretext stop. And I was speaking as to policy for other agencies that I've read up on online, right? As opposed
the ones that are trying to remove them by policy,
right? That are basically going any infraction that you go to pull over. That's it's not a non-mover, but it's an infraction. They don't want you to do it. No, they're building policy against it, but they're saying movers, such as misdemeanors and things like that, like rolling a stop sign or lights and stuff like that, red light violations, turn signal and stuff like that that you're actually moving and doing.
Right.
Some agencies have actually said, no, you can't do that because it's by definition a pretext stop. And they say there's a bunch of different things that come into play that I'm not going to get into, but by definition, that is a pretext stop. And then the agencies that are going towards, oh, you got an infraction. Well, that's the first step in that whole thing to then eventually go, okay, well, no, it was just a stop sign. No, it was just this. No, it was just that. And then eventually, where are you left at? When does it stop? Where does it stop? When does a pretext stop? Are you just going to go straight felony stops and that's it? And,
slippery slope.
It's happened in other incidents. It is.
I'll tell you what, boys and girls, policies. You want to cover yourself? I'm going to tell you, Tom's tip for covering yourself. And this was an older cop that gave me this. He goes, if you're going to pull dopers over for equipment violations all the time, you need to start pulling over regular people and handing out tickets for some of those equipment violations once in a while. And I said, why? And he goes, because either you're enforcing those equipment violations across the board or you're not.
And now, I don't know if you guys had it, but there was this thing, it's a tracking system that all of the state of California has to use now. It's called the automated automated field data something.
You're talking about the RAPA? Is that the one CHP uses?
No, this is a statewide thing now. It basically logs every stop that you do, every arrest that you do by race, gender, ethnicity, fucking creed, man, woman, other, everything. You have to put the reason why you're stopped, the reason why you arrested, all your probable cause, and basically write a quick little report, a disposition, and then it's a database.
Because that's what we want to do is write fucking reports on a traffic stop.
And now it's mandated by California state law that you shall do this for every vehicle. Even if you give a warning, you have to do the reason why you pulled over and what you cited for, what you warned for, and go through that. If you wrote a citation, the citation number, so they can look back on it. So now what you were saying, what your old partner was saying, that's more imperative to do now. If you're pulling over just gangsters for this, you need to start pulling over other people for this, so that when you go to court and they pull those records, because
I stop this all the time.
You do everybody, like across the board. It doesn't matter.
Stop a soccer mom, scratch her. She'll get that license plate light fixed. She'll get that tail light fixed.
And the funny thing is, they even have in there, and I'll ask both of you guys real quick. They even have in there, could you determine the race of the person you stopped prior to your stop? And my answer is no, because you're in a vehicle moving. Like, how am I going to be able to that's
not to mention the fact that I can't determine race based on their skin color.
Exactly.
Like,
you can't.
I've seen look at Marco. Marco is Hispanic all day long, and he's paler than me. So no, I can't determine race necessarily. So anyway,
the redheaded dude.
Well, so that was fun. Thanks for coming on, Adam.
Absolutely, man.
We got to get you over to locker room where we can actually talk shit.
I would love that. Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime you guys need to fill a gap or whatever.
Where's Matt's bell? Damn it, this is the wrong show.
I was just thinking, I was like, I had a really good comeback to that, but I can't say it because it's
wrong show.
Yeah, sorry. That was pretty bad.
Right.
I just realized what I said.
Well, Chuck, why don't you take us home?
All right, guys and gals. Real quick, Adam, do you have someone to dedicate the episode to?
Gosh, you guys always ask us, and I always.
If you don't, it's okay. I have someone.
No, go ahead. You're good. Okay.
So I'm going to do this first. It's a little bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to get into the dedication. And this is dedication that we did post earlier on in the weeks. Go to our Instagrams, our socials, not locker room. I'm sorry. War Stories on Facebook. There's links in the bio. You can reach us at our website there. And you can purchase gear. We still have some Wilby hoodies. We have shirts. We have patches. We have stickers, and we're getting orders out every week. So go over there, support us, help support the podcast. And then you can also put a little plug in here. You can also go over to Watch 3 Apparel, and you can help support them, and it supports us as well. Yeah. So hit all of that up, like and share our stuff. It really does help. Everything's been doing well so far on Instagram and Facebook. You guys are doing a killer job when we're trying to get information out there, especially about Ukraine and Russia going on, and there's gonna be more coming up. But we kind of started slowing down to try to filter out some of that stuff that's maybe propaganda, maybe not.
Yeah, it's hard to
try to give you the most accurate. Yeah, try and give you the most accurate information. But please go to our Instagram, go to our Facebook, like, share us. Go to the
head over to Watch 3 Apparel. Tell them we sent you. Head over to our website, subscribe, and send us your email address. Follow us on all the socials and buy a shirt.
Yeah, and if you want to come on the show, booking.warstories@gmail.com. You'll receive me there. Give me a quick bio of why you want to come on the show, your background, and what story you may have. And then we will get together, drop your cell phone number so it's easier for me to call you, so I'm not waiting on your email. Right. And we can just get it scheduled that much faster. Now into the dedication. This is from Huntington Beach Police Department in California. Nicholas Villela. Police officer Nicholas Villela was killed in a police helicopter crash around 6:30 p.m. He and another officer responding to provide aerial support in the Newport Beach Police Department. At the scene of a fight call, the helicopter lost altitude and crashed into Newport Bay near 18th Street. Officer Villela and his partner were both pulled from the helicopter and transported to a local hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. Officer Villela had served with the Huntington Beach Police Department for 14 years, had previously served with the Laguna Beach Police Department for 2 years. He is survived by his wife and daughter. He was 44 years old. Tour was 16 years, and his badge was 2120.
Oh, rest easy, brother. We got it from here. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
And
My
I know that's
buddies,
gonna mean
I got a
a
couple
lot to
buddies
some
that
of
work
these
at HB, and they were posting stuff about him.
He was a good dude. He was a good dude.
Sounds like
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Rest easy, brother. We got it from here. Well, again, Chuck, thank you. Adam, thank you as always.
My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.